Bullet Talk, Episode 34. Updates to shooting programs in 2016. Hey everybody, Crystal O'Connor here with Bullet Talk Radio. So good to be behind the mic once again for yet another episode. And by the time you guys hear this, I'm going to be in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania with Great American Outdoor Show. But today we are bringing back the show's good friend, Clint Macro. He is the founder of Trigger Pressers Union. He's an active NRA certified training counselor holding NRA training counselor and instructor ratings in dun dun dun, here's the list: rifle, pistol, shotgun, personal protection inside the home, personal protection outside the home, home firearm safety, metallic cartridge reloading, shotgun shell reloading, and muzzle loading rifle. He is also the regional counselor for the Refuse to be a Victim program, NRA Chief RSO, certified instructor for the United States Concealed Carry Association, GSM Master Instructor, PA Game Commission, Hunter Trapper Education Instructor, Revolutionary War Veterans Association Rifleman and Appleseed Instructor and RSO, Glock Certified Armorer, and Smith & Wesson Certified M&P Pistol Armorer, and an NRA pistol coach. And that kind of brings us into some of what we're going to be talking about today. And Clint, you may not know, but the last two episodes that I've done, we've talked a lot about mentorship and training. And the last episode, I talked a lot about the NRA and the USCCA classes that people can take in order to start from beginner and go all the way through. So we're actually piggybacking on some of that here and talking a lot about some of the changes and some of the upgrades really being made to these programs. So we're going to start with that whole coaching thing. What is that?
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show again.
Always.
I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to your listeners. And in regards to the pistol coaching program, it's actually Practical Pistol Coach. That's a new rating they have. They've had a coaching program for years and years and years. And generally, the coaching program was geared more towards competition, collegiate sports, Olympic style shooting, where it was sports oriented, where they would have a coach, just like a basketball coach, that would be coaching a team or competitors. And the new practical program, they have practical pistol. I believe they're coming out with practical shotgun and practical rifle as well. And what that means is we're coaching people to use a firearm for self-defense. And it's kind of like a personal trainer, like the guy that chases you around and tells you to do more sit-ups or something like that. That's kind of where it's headed. And I was fortunate enough to be one of, I think 20, if I recall off the top of my head. And that number may not be correct, but just a few individuals from across the country. I was cherry-picked and asked to join them down at NRA headquarters last fall. And we went down and attended the very first Practical Pistol Coach School. And it was really an amazing opportunity. I got to work with some really, really high-end instructors and shooters. I was very honored to be part of the list. And so basically, in the past and currently with NRA instruction, especially the organized courses, you are certified to teach from a syllabus. And they give you a very well-vetted lesson plan that's very effective. And you go through and you teach the book. While you're on the line, obviously you're giving pointers and diagnosing issues and trying to help shooters shoot better, but we're teaching from a lesson plan. And with the Practical Pistol Coach program, it's a very client-oriented, service-oriented. We're talking to the people that we want to work with and finding out exactly what they need, where they want to see themselves head as far as their shooting goes, and we customize training to suit them. It's very very much. We talked a lot in the Pistol Coach School about servant leadership, and so what I generally do is I meet with new prospective clients, and I'll meet the first time, and I prepare an agenda so they know what we're going to be doing ahead of time, and I typically just go over very basic firearm safety to start with. I figure it's my obligation as a fellow citizen to make sure people aren't going to shoot themselves or do something silly with a firearm. So the first time I meet with them, I just make sure I give them a good solid background in just firearm safety, not necessarily execution of the firearm, but just safety. And I'll do that meeting with them for free. And I meet up with them, and we usually spend an hour or so just to talk to them, make sure it's going to be a good fit, that they're, that we're going to be able to work well together. And then at the outset of that, we kind of decide, all right, where do we want to go with this? I'm working with one client who she just wanted to get proficient enough and learn enough about a firearm to where she could potentially buy a firearm. And that's where we started. And once we got to that point, then she wanted to continue on with the training so that she could use the firearm and feel comfortable carrying it. Mm-hmm. And I have another couple, a man and woman, they're a married couple that want to have a firearm in their home that they can use for home defense, a pistol. And they wanted to get the training so that they could be comfortable doing that, both of them together. And some people have firearms already. Some have never touched one and want to purchase one, so they want to work with that, work their way up to that. I've got another individual who's been owned a firearm for years, has one in their home. They shoot well with it. They're pretty confident with it, but they've just never carried it on their body all the time. So we're doing a lot of training specifically for concealed carry, and their main concern is their route from work to home. They don't feel safe on that route because of the time of day they have to travel and the neighborhoods they have to travel through. So we're working our way up to the point where we can do a lot of work from a vehicle and how to access a firearm while wearing a seatbelt and do that type of training. And I do lots and lots of simulated training, especially initially to work on the foundation of fundamentals. And then we get into actually the live fire portion of it. The individuals who didn't own firearms will work with the CERT pistols and a few other laser devices that I have, some simulated products. And then I'll pull out every firearm I can and give them a smorgasbord of firearms that we can practice with, just dry firing, just to see if we can kind of narrow it down to which guns fit their hands best. Then we'll do a live fire portion. They can bring some ammo and they can shoot a couple different firearms that I have available and then kind of make a better choice. And a few of the clients now, we've gone to the store and picked them out a firearm and we've gone shopping together. And now they have brand new pistols that, of course, now we're working those pistols when we practice. On my website, I put together a little promotional blurb, and I think it's pretty good marketing, but also it's very truthful. Sometimes people will take a class and they'll feel that the class might be a little too basic for them, mm-hmm. or other times they might find themselves in a class where they feel totally over their head, where it's too advanced for them. And this program is really designed towards customizing training for that individual. We can work at their pace, on their time frame, and pick away at it. Mike Hughes, who I've talked about a great deal before, he's someone I look up to very much, the owner of Next Level Training. And one of his philosophies is you're better off doing multiple small training sessions than big, giant, long training sessions. Kind of like if you take it from nutrition, you're better off doing grazing and doing small meals throughout the day as opposed to one or two big meals. Mm-hmm. And so with the Practical Pistol Coach program, rather than having someone invest an entire day or 2 days in a training session, they're coming in, and generally my session, I call them sessions. The training sessions usually go about 2 hours, give or take. You know me, and other people do too. I get a little long-winded, and they may go a little over 2 hours sometimes, but it's in that ballpark. So that's kind of how we schedule them, in little 2-hour increments.
So bringing in a coach to help you with your shooting or picking a gun or whatever it is you feel you need coaching for, this really isn't just for people who have gone through a bunch of courses and who want to become experts of whatever it is. It's also for people who may have never picked up a gun before, just the same as the first shots or a basic pistol class. It's just much more personalized.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. I am authorized by the NRA to go ahead and under their banner, I can still wear my NRA patch and say I'm here on, as a trainer that has been trained by the National Rifle Association, and I can customize training for them. And, my basic guidelines are that everything I do has to be safe and ethical, which it would be anyhow. I mean, that's how I roll. So we really customize that training to fit anybody's needs.
So if someone wanted to find out more about how to hire you for coaching, how would they do that?
Well, of course, you can visit my website, which is triggerpressersunion.com. And you can go to the website there, and there's some information in a contact form that you can fill out, and then I'll get back in touch with you in regards to that.
And for those who aren't necessarily in Pennsylvania, we've got listeners in Virginia, Texas, California. Shout out to all you folks. How would they see if there's a coach in their area?
Well, I don't know if the other coaches are actively marketing or not, but I tell you what, if any of your listeners outside of our general vicinity want to find one, contact me anyhow, and I can go through the roster of the people that were in the class with me. And I can certainly forward your information on to them, and they can meet up with you.
I think this is a really fantastic opportunity. I've taken a number of classes, like actual generated pre-lesson planned classes, and I've also taken classes that were kind of home brewed by people who aren't necessarily teaching the class under the NRA banner. And I've done some coaching with people who walk me through certain things, but it's never been that they've necessarily been officially certified to do that by anybody, or that they've kind of learned a really good way. For those of you who are instructors, the NRA puts us through a BIT program where we literally learn really good methods for teaching people. And I think it's really, really great that the NRA is realizing that there's this need out there and is providing a program for instructors such as yourself to create such programs, much more personalized programs.
Yeah, right now, as far as I understand it, and again, I don't want to overemphasize or exaggerate my sphere of influence, but as I understand down at NRA headquarters, the program now is just us. We're the guinea pigs, and the agendas that I have to generate for my clients, I'm sending them down to the NRA, and they kind of look at them. So I'm sure they're formulating some type of guidelines. But the practical pistol coach and I guess the rifle and shotgun as well, I believe those will be. It's their intent to make those available to all NRA instructors and individuals in the future. So, we're kind of the guinea pigs working out the kinks. And then when they formulate some more guidelines, I'm assuming that's what they're doing. It'll be available in the future. It's kind of the mindset of where I believe, this is my opinion, where I believe the NRA training is kind of headed towards. And I base this on the new developments with the NRA basic pistol course. They are looking more towards instructors as opposed to being just presenters or people that disseminate information from a lesson plan, putting more of an onus on the coaching aspect, working one-on-one with shooters, working practically hands-on, and diagnosing any shortcomings, and then trying to find ways to overcome them and give diagnostics. And one of the things we had talked about in the Practical Pistol Coach School, and I believe one of the gentlemen from Texas has kind of spearheaded this, and he started putting together something on his website. Eventually, we had discussed having a searchable portal. Those of you who are NRA instructors know that you can visit nrainstructors.org, and there's lots of extra information for instructors there. And eventually, I'm sure this will take a while to build, but there would be a searchable database where you could say, all right, I have someone with, that has a pink shirt on, missing 2 fingers, that's flinching every time they press the trigger, and then you type that in there, and instructors and coaches can upload videos or type things in there to say, hey, I just had a guy with pink shirt and missing 2 fingers that was flinching every time they touch the trigger. Here's what I tried, and it seemed to work very well. And that would be an amazing database to access as instructors and coaches, because I know there's been several times where we've had people that had deficiencies, whether they be physical limitations or just they just weren't shooting well, and And being an instructor and a coach on the firing line, especially, you're kind of acting like a doctor. We got to try and diagnose why this is occurring, what's occurring, and then try and figure a way to fix it. And sometimes that's a process. Sometimes like, all right, let's try this. And I'll tell them we're gonna try something new. This is either gonna work or it's gonna make it worse. So let's just see how this works. And then, you'll get either a really bad target or a good target, and then you can work from there and continue moving forward. But having that searchable database might be a really, really cool thing to utilize, especially in regards to diagnostics and fixing any deficiencies with a shooter.
Instructors really do become diagnosticians. There's an instructor you and I both know that I've been doing a lot of work with, and I tell other shooters on the line that I listen to him anytime I can because I want to learn the different things that he comes up with to try to fix different shooting problems. And he never seems to be satisfied. There's always room for improvement, and he has all these tricks up his sleeve. One of the first classes I taught with this gentleman, we had a shooter who was new. She had a firearm that was purchased for her by her husband, of course, and she had never shot it before. And she's trying to shoot this gun, and she kept shooting low. So then we start diagnosing that, and then she started shooting right. So then we start diagnosing that, and then next thing you know, her shots are going everywhere, all over the paper. And I'm not talking like 3-5 inches. I'm talking everywhere. And finally, hey, I need a little help. What's going on with her? He finally gets to a point where he sits down in the chair and shoots her firearm himself and found out that the front sight was loose.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just going through that entire process. It really is diagnosing. It is kind of like being a gun doctor, a shooting doctor.
Yeah, that happens a lot. And well, I don't want to name a particular brand, but there is a particular fire that if I know they're shooting, it's the first thing I check is that front sight, and that does happen. Usually, something where someone has some semblance of a grouping, and they're pretty consistent with that. Whether it be a tight grouping or a little bit of a wide grouping, and then when it completely goes to crap and shots are going everywhere, it's usually a mechanical failure. At least, yeah, I would say probably. I'll say usually. I'll go ahead and say that someone may write in or call in and say something different, but that's the first thing I would check would be that sight. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, shooting low, it could be a grip deficiency. It could be a fit problem. One of the things you should do first before you start firing is, how to, well, here, I'll explain. You want to check your natural point of aim. And what natural point of aim is basically how the firearm interfaces with your body. And when you present the firearm, whether it be a rifle or a shotgun, in this case, we're talking about a pistol, you push the firearm out and how it naturally points when it feels comfortable in your hands. And you can have someone check their grip, get everything to where it feels comfortable, have them close their eyes and present the firearm, and then open their eyes and see if their sight plane is level. And if it's not level, then the gun doesn't fit their hand. Unless they have a severe grip deficiency. You want to make sure the grip looks correct first and feels comfortable. But actually, I was shooting one particular brand of firearm when I was working with Mike Hughes. He did that drill with me, and we had realized that the firearm I was using didn't fit my hand. So every time I would shoot, I had to make an adjustment to get my sights on. And the body is, anyone that's been in a class with me, this is something I say over and over again, the body's an amazing thing, and we take in all kinds of information and we process information without us even really realizing it. And I can quickly make that determination and make the physical adjustments to get my sight plane straight pretty fast. But if I don't have to, if the gun fits my hand right and it indexes and points properly, then that's one less thing I have to do, one less mechanical thing that I have to do, less muscle I have to use. Mm-hmm. And it makes you more efficient and it oftentimes makes you, gives you the ability to get shots off faster, more accurately, definitely in regards to recoil management. But going back to your diagnostic thing, one thing I will throw out there to instructors, this is something that I have picked up from another instructor, and it makes tons of sense. If you're trying to diagnose, say you have some issues, now this wouldn't be one of those cases where, okay, no shots are hitting the target at all. But when we're trying to take maybe a 1 foot group and try and get it down to a 9 or a 6-inch group, one of the ways you can really diagnose if it's a trigger deficiency or a grip deficiency, an interface deficiency, I like to call it, is have them shoot one-handed. It takes that support hand out of the equation. And if they shoot really well one-handed, and then you add in the support hand, then, well, it's a grip deficiency or presentation deficiency. If they still shoot similarly, if I said that correctly, one-handed, then we know it's a trigger deficiency. So that's just one quick way you can check something.
Mm-hmm. So since we're talking about the NRA and their training programs, and you've already mentioned it briefly, let's jump into the basic pistol course, which has some changes that many of you who are instructors probably already received emails about. What's this all about?
Oh, new and exciting changes. We've taken a giant leap in the late 20th century. That's a joke. The new program is pretty fantastic. And basically what it entails is if someone is going to take a basic pistol course, right now for you instructors, right this day, we're still doing things the way you have been trained, and I'll say, quote, the old way. And the traditional old way is still going to be in play. They haven't announced when the blended, is what they're calling it, the blended program starts, but I believe it's going to start in the end of February. There will be an overlap period where you could finish up your already scheduled courses and do them the old way, and then I don't know if it'll be 60 days, 30 days, 90 days, but after that window expires, then we'll be 100% into the new blended. And basically what it does is much of the classroom portion that we used to teach in the classroom with a PowerPoint and posters and chalkboards and so on and so forth, that's all done online with a very, very, very well-produced online component. They call it the e-learning. So people that want to take the basic pistol will take the e-learning first, and then when the e-learning is completed, then they will finish up what they call phase 2 with an NRA certified instructor and actually take some hands-on training with that instructor. And traditionally, the old way, I'll say for our purposes here today, the quote old way of doing things, class is about 8 hours. Mm-hmm. And with the new way, the online portion is going to run them about 8 hours, give or take an hour, depending on how fast people work. And the instructor-led portion will work anywhere between 6 and 8 hours. Plus, there's some additional things the instructors can do to bring people back. So it's a lot more training, a lot more information. And in regards to the instructor-led portion, it's TPI on steroids. And TPI is total participant involvement. That's a phrase the NRA training uses, basically meaning rather than sit there and lecture someone, it's best to have people get their hands on equipment and have the students be involved in the learning process as opposed to being talked to. So the new program is TPI to the max. And one of the beauties of it is with this online component, on second one, when the students come into your class, they're going to already have a solid baseline understanding of all the concepts. They're going to have a solid baseline understanding of all of the techniques that we're going to be working with them. It's really fantastic. And the end user, the client, they can do this online training at home at 2 a.m, sitting in their underwear drinking a Pepsi. So, they can split it up. When I beta tested the online component, the e-learning, about a month ago, and I was charged with the task of taking detailed notes. And so I was taking it with the notes. It took me about 8.5 hours to do it. And it took me about a week. I picked away at it, half hour, 45 minutes each night. When you start as the student, you start at the beginning and you have to advance through every slide. And each slide may contain an animatic or a video or the hosts. There's 2 hosts. They're very attractive, strong, but non-threatening looking people who, basically introduce and talk about the teaching points. And each slide is very interactive. So when you start with this slide, for instance, it'll one of the slides I can recall that I can tell you about is they show a pistol and they say there are 3 main components of a pistol: the frame, the action, and the barrel. And there's little boxes that go bing, 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 and they're all pointing to it. Then they disappear, and then they say, please drag the corresponding component name to the corresponding component area. So you have to click on frame and hold the mouse button down and drag it up and put it in the correct box. And then click on action and drag it up to the correct box, and so on and so forth. There's no way to get through each slide without doing some type of task. And then at the end of each module, every section, there's a quiz, and you have to take the quiz. And if you miss a question in the quiz, it says, looks like we need to review. Let's go back, and then it sends you back, and it does a review. At the end, after every test, then it goes through the learning outcomes, they call it. It's basically our course objectives, like we would say during our class now. And it says, are you comfortable with, and the student has to sign off with a radio box. Are you comfortable, would you be able to explain the three main components of a firearm? You click yes. And if you click no on any of that, it says, perhaps we need time to go back and review, and it sends you back in again. So there's no way to take the course without actually taking it. And it's my professional background is in film and music. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very well done. It's very slick. It's very high quality stuff. I think when you get a chance to take a look at it, you'll be impressed with it. Of course, we're all scared of change, and we don't like to change things. And when they announced this new blended learning program at the NRA convention in Indianapolis 2 years ago, it was like an old Western movie where people picked up chairs and started throwing
pandemonium.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was, well, actually, no one actually threw any chairs. That's incorrect. But there was lots of grumbling and fists waving in the air and stuff like that. And I have to admit, I was skeptical at first, but when I saw the level of quality and the amount of time and effort that the NRA has put into this online stuff, I mean, it's really, really fantastic. And I was talking to some other training counselors about it, and if all of my instructors that I have trained to this date were as good as this online stuff, man, what a different place we'd live in. And that's no dig on any instructors, but for instance, I can hold up a poster and I can pass around components for ammunition for a cartridge. And I can explain the sequence of fire. And I think I do a pretty damn good job at it. And I know other instructors do too. But the students can now see this at home with a really cool three-dimensional animatic where they can see the explosion of the primer is showering the sparks into the propellant, and the propellant burning rapidly, creating the gas. And three-dimensional animatics that move, and you can see different angles of it. I mean, it's a wonderful training tool. And the e-learning was never meant to, and nor does it replace the instructor. That's not the reason for it. But what it does is, in the past, we would introduce, then we would explain, then we would demonstrate, and then we'd have our students practice. All the e-learning is doing is it's introducing these concepts. I would say, just off the top of my head, if I had to give a number, I would say 95% of everything in the e-learning we're going to readdress when we work with our students live, except it's going to be in a practical, hands-on context. So rather than us pointing at a poster or pointing at a PowerPoint and explaining, we're going to be actually talking about these concepts and these things in a practical, hands-on, real world, I guess, for lack of a better term, context. It's going to be pretty awesome. And instructors, you need to. I'm doing an instructor update. I'm calling it an informal one because it's not a proper NRA class. But I'm going to go through the program and talk about it and do an update for instructor candidates at Millvale on the 5th, on Friday. And lots of people have signed up for it. If anyone listening wants to sign up, you have to go on to Trigger Pressers and sign up on the RSVP form. I need to have a list of who's there, but it doesn't cost anything. And after the update, Jeff Seeley from SimTac is going to set up a Milo range, which is a really awesome simulated shoot, don't shoot, scenario-based training setup, and he's going to demo that. And Millvale's going to open their kitchen up, so everyone bring $5-10 of cash and support the club and buy a sandwich.
For any of you out there that are also training counselors, I would recommend doing a similar kind of informal update if you can with your instructors as well. You know, when we finish teaching a course, we usually pass out surveys and say, hey, give us your feedback on what you think about the course. And for the basic pistol, the one thing that we seem to always hear is that they want more time with their hands on the metal or polymer, as it were. That they feel like the 1 hour, maybe hour and a half that they get on the range, they would like more, because by the time you're done with that, they're just starting to get the idea. They're just starting to, for those who are really truly brand new to it, it just isn't enough time with their hands on the metal. And for a lot of people, you know, seeing it is good, and using the tests as a teaching tool, as we typically do, is good. But 8 hours, by the time you're done, you're glassy-eyed. Even the instructors are tired. And being able to do it at your own pace, and then being able to give them more time, more hands-on time, is going to ultimately, I think, make for safer shooters when they do go out to the range on their own.
Yeah, the instructor-led portion, as it is with the new way coming up, that's referred to as the phase 2. It gives us a lot more flexibility as instructors, for one. 2, it's more round count. There's more live fire involved. Mm-hmm. And we have scored qualifications now at the end. So
right.
Those of you who are instructors, I'm sure at some point you came across someone that you were a little, I don't know, maybe a little nervous about signing off on their certificate. Mm-hmm. You know, the criteria to sign off on a certificate has always been somewhat gray, but that gray area is gone. They complete the test, they're safe at the firearm, and they have to shoot the qualification. Mm-hmm. And when I do I'm an advanced pistol instructor with the NRA. When I do the defensive modules, that's what the advanced pistol instructors do. We have a defensive qualification at the end, and I tell people at the beginning, hey, some of you guys may not make the qualification today. That's fine. That's okay, because I'm here to work with my clients for the long haul. I've never been one of those people. It's like, here's your certificate. See you later.
Right.
So with these qualifications, at the end of the day, when you start shooting the quals, you could shoot the quals once, you could shoot them twice, you could shoot them a number of times. And if it's so that's more shooting. And if they don't qual, that's fine. They can come back. We'll, set up some type of infrastructure for them to come back. We'll do a requal day. With the defensive pistol courses that I do now, the folks that don't qual, I stay in touch with them. They practice, so they're getting more training on their own, because now they have a goal to reach, and they practice on their own, and they call me up, say I'm ready, and then I meet up with them, wherever that is, and we do the qualification again, and then when they qual, I sign off and give them the certificate. Mm-hmm. So the opportunities with the new phase 2 are pretty awesome. I mean, we have more opportunity to shoot with our clients and bring them back, and from a goodwill aspect and from a mercenary business aspect, it gives us more opportunity for income, frankly. If you're charging a fee for the reshoots, you can make a few extra bucks. There's the red level qual. If you guys look in your lesson plans, your phase 2 lesson plans, that's the first qualification. I believe it's the red, and then there's the white level and then the blue level. So there's 2 more levels of qualification that we can bring them back. Or, if we wanted to do a very long day at the range, we could have them shoot at that time if they were able to qualify that day. And also the NRA is really pushing, hey, bring your students back and shoot the qualifications from the Winchester NRA Marksmanship Qualification mm-hmm. program. It's recommended that we bring them back. So it really gives us more opportunity to work with these people and really train them, as opposed to just teach them a class, if you can tell the difference between there. And it's really more ongoing customer service.
Mm-hmm.
It's really very exciting. I'm very excited about it. I'm really trying to get my instructors and frankly any instructor I come across to be excited about it. Because for a long time, not knowing all the answers and all these questions, we always think the worst and we guess and make up stories in our head. But now that the stuff is available, as a matter of fact, NRA instructors, you can go online. You should have received an email where you can go online and look at the e-learning to see what it's about. You guys all should have your phase 2 lesson plans, or at least a PDF of it now. Someone asked me, it's my understanding that they will print lesson plans and put them up on the Program Material Center where you can buy a pre-printed one. But right now, everyone has been supplied a PDF of it so you can look at it. And it's very, very good stuff. I'm very excited about it.
I will be interested to see your update on Friday.
Yeah, I still have yet to make my PowerPoint.
That's all right. PowerPoint, schmowerpoint. So what is this NRA Pistol Marksmanship Simulator Program video series, other than a big mouthful?
Oh yeah, it's tough to say. Yeah, it's a series of episodes, actually three episodes that I put together on best practices for instructors to utilize the program and be able to put the course on. About a year ago, the NRA came out with the Pistol Marksmanship Simulator program, and internally they call it Simco, and so I've kind of labeled it the Simco videos. And basically what it is, NRA pistol instructors are authorized to put on this course, which uses simulated devices, and I've talked about doing simulated training a number of times on your show, but this is an NRA sanctioned, for lack of a better term, an NRA course that at the end we can give them an NRA certificate. And it's similar to the course that I was putting on with Next Level Training, but more along the lines of very basic. The Next Level Training course that, the defensive accuracy course I was doing is geared more towards self-defense, whereas the Simco course is for pistol marksmanship. But we can put that class on anywhere. We can put it on a blank wall in a church, at a school would be great if we could do that. Of course, with the simulated firearms, they're not firearms. They're actually training devices. So we probably would be able to pull that off. I'm trying to find a school where I can do that. I think that would be good PR, not to mention an opportunity for people to get some training. You could do it at a gun show. You could, anywhere you have a wall, a safe background, you can shoot these laser pistols. And that's what they are. They use laser pistols, laser devices. And the NRA put the program out, put a PowerPoint up on nrainstructor.org and basically said, here, you guys can do this. And a lot of instructors didn't realize what it was, and people were asking me, is this a class that I can do? And the NRA made it available but didn't do a whole lot of, promotion behind it, for lack of a better term. So I was charged by a few individuals to, hey, why don't you do a video? I said, I'm not an in front of the camera guy. I'm a behind the camera guy. He said, why don't you do a video for us? And so I put one together and we submitted it to John Howard down at NRA training. And he and the powers that be said, yeah, pretty cool. If you make this, we'll put it on nrainstructor.org and make it available to all the instructors. So I went ahead and did that, and there are 3 episodes. The entire program, if you put all 3 together, I think would be a little over an hour. And I just ramble on and talk about the best ways to put the Simco class on, talk about using cert pistols, how you can use them in your training, using the LASR software, and ways you could put together a Simco course. And I've been getting some pretty good feedback on it. At the end of the last episode, I said, of course, with NRA training, evaluation is very key. And I charged people with, send me an email, and I put my email address on there. Give me an evaluation of the videos, but also let me know what you guys are doing with your courses, and bounce questions off me. I'm here for customer support. Whether it be a student I train or an instructor that I train, I am always here for customer support. I look at the instructors I train as my instructors. You're really not my instructors, but you're someone that I trained, and I want people to say, oh, Macro trained you. Okay, good. I want there to be some quality associated with that. So I'm really here for customer support.
Those simulator programs are really fantastic. If you look back in the archives of the Bullet Talk podcast, you'll find an episode, I want to say it was episode number 22, where we talked about the laser program and the SIRT pistols and the benefits of laser training. And I really can't emphasize enough how much dry fire, but also laser training really can. It can help you maintain, it can help you improve, and it's also a really good option for people who are incapable of shooting live fire at that moment. For example, if you happen to be pregnant and you can't make it to the range and you shouldn't be touching all that lead and contaminants, pull out a SIRT pistol and do some practice there. That way you're maintaining your current level. Really, really great programs, and I really encourage y'all to take a look at that. I've looked at the videos up on nrainstructors.org, and they're really good. And I did take one of the courses with Clint, and he's also very accurate in talking about how he works as kind of customer service to the instructors that he's taught. He's my training counselor. He certified me for basic pistol, and he's been on my show several times, which I hope is bringing value to you folks. We're in pretty constant contact, I would say, and I was actually just with him over the last weekend doing some training on first aid and CPR, got certified in that, but he and a team with their new company, Trident Home Safety, is that?
Yeah, Trident Home Safety, yeah.
And it was really great because it took your CPR, AED, first aid class, it gave you that, and then they expanded upon it, particularly for firearm instructors and RSOs, as to how you can implement emergency plans on the range and what to do if you're running a line and something were to go wrong, somebody were to get hurt, and not necessarily even from a firearm-related accident, but, maybe somebody has a cardiac event or an asthma attack or gets stung by a bee, or what you do on the line, and it really was beneficial. So he does offer a lot of that additional stuff to his instructors. And again, as counselors, I would really encourage you to do that because it helps us instructors keep upping our game. So the new NRA and NMLRA, National Muzzle Loading Rifle Association. I will be honest, I've never shot muzzle load.
Oh, that's fun stuff.
So why don't you tell us about this?
Well, before we do, I just want to mention, the Simcoe videos are on nrainstructor.org, but they would be beneficial to someone that's not, if you're not an instructor, you would still get some benefit from watching them if you intend on using laser devices to train with. Mm-hmm. So if you go on triggerpressersunion.com on the home page, the front page, if you scroll down, I have them there where anybody can watch them. It's not just for instructors. So I just want to let you guys know that. And the laser training and dry fire training, it's none of it is supposed to replace live fire, but it's
Absolutely
there to enhance
not.
it. You got to look at it as a like a balanced breakfast. You got to have all the different food groups. Well, a good balanced training program should consist of dry fire and simulated training and mental training and, of course, live fire. Mixing it up. And what that does is it uses more parts of the brain to create the neural pathways that we need to create, but also it makes it so that you can train every single day. Even sitting in your chair at home, thinking about the proper draw stroke and thinking about your personal protection plan. Hey, what would I do if someone invaded my home right now? What would I do? That type of mental training is also beneficial. There was a study done that another instructor showed us during the class, where they had a group of individuals in one room that were looking at videos and just talking about draw stroke and shooting and shooting fundamentals. Then they had another room of people that were live fire. They were actually practicing. And then they had their control group on the end that were eating donuts, talking about the Steeler game or something like that. And then they went and qualified all three groups. And, of course, the ones eating donuts didn't do well. But the people who were live fire training and the people that were just talking about it and looking at videos, they all scored pretty close. So there's definitely some value to mixing up your training. But the key is every day you need to do something. If this is a lifestyle choice and it's something that if you're using a firearm to defend your family, that's a valuable piece of life-saving equipment. You need to be working every day towards making yourself more efficient with it. That's just my opinion. Now, back to the muzzle loading. About a year ago, the NRA has always had muzzleloading rifle, muzzleloading pistol, muzzleloading shotgun. These are different disciplines for instructors to teach the corresponding course to student courses, just like basic pistol or basic rifle. And the courses have been pretty much the same for many, many, many years because there really hasn't been a whole lot of with the exception of the inline muzzleloading rifles for hunting that are real popular now. There hasn't been a whole lot of updates to muzzleloading firearms. That's definitely old technology. And so about a year ago, they decided to redo the curriculum to where no longer will there be the 3 different ratings. There'll just be one all-encompassing muzzleloader rating. And to get that muzzleloader rating, you have to be proficient with muzzleloading rifles, muzzleloading shotguns, and muzzleloading pistols. Now, I have been certified as a muzzleloading rifle instructor, but when this plan goes into full effect, people that just have one of those ratings, they're going to lose the rating. You're going to have to start over. And I'm very goal-oriented, and I wanted to get those other ratings anyhow. But when this news came out, it kind of motivated me. So I went out and picked up a muzzleloading shotgun, which was actually very hard to find, frankly, and a couple different muzzleloading pistols. And I'm fortunate. I'm excited. I'm going to be training with Marty Murphy, who is a past president of the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association, and he is their chief, one of their high up chief trainers, and he's going to basically upgrade me to where I can earn that all-encompassing muzzleloader rating. So I'm driving out to Friendship, Indiana, to the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association range, and we're going to go through that in April. So after mid-April and later, I should be able to offer my clients the all-encompassing muzzleloader rating if they would like to get that. As a training counselor, I'll be able to certify instructors. But the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association, they started in the 1930s, and they always did, the NRA always did the muzzleloading courses in conjunction with the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association. So the new curriculum was written by Marty. He wrote the new books, and it's pretty exciting. And they've added in more modern stuff with the inline muzzleloaders because they're very, very popular in hunting. And it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to taking part in that and going out to Friendship and shooting at that range. I've only seen videos of it, and it's a really, really cool facility.
Well, maybe someday, just for fun, I will take a muzzle loading course off of you because that is something I have very little familiarity with.
Yeah, it requires a little more skill, and you certainly need a lot more tools. Because we're basically creating our load every time we load the firearm.
Right.
So it definitely it requires a little more skill, and working with black powder is reasonably volatile. So, well,
there's something nostalgic about it. It's like driving a stick shift. There's something nostalgic about it.
Yeah. Black powder requires a little more care, I should say. It's not like Yosemite Sam, but I will say this just as a public service: never load a muzzleloader from the powder horn or from the can, because what can happen is if there is a burning ember inside of the bore, the one thing that Bugs Bunny is correct about is if there is a trail of black powder in the ground, the fire will go whoosh and follow it up to the can or the powder horn, and it will explode.
I have to admit, I never thought that Bugs Bunny would be brought up on Bullet Talk Radio.
I'm the first one to bring up Bugs Bunny. I
love Bugs Bunny.
And as a matter of fact, a colleague of mine that does a lot of reenactments, he witnessed a man who did that. He loaded from the powder horn, and the flame caught, and the powder horn blew up, and the guy lost some fingers. So even back in the day, they always had some type of measuring device. Traditionally, they'd take a deer antler and they'd hollow it out, and they'd make basically a measure. So you'd pour the powder into the measuring device and then pour the measuring device into the bore. And today, there's lots of different brass components that we can use to measure. Of course, we would want to use brass because if I used a steel measuring device, what would happen if I touched steel to steel?
Electricity.
It could spark. And a spark with black powder is not a very good thing. So
He's putting me on the spot.
Yeah,
He's testing me.
and you only had 2 sips of coffee already. So
Seriously, it's not fair.
when you're using muzzleloaders, you need to have the brass tools. And this is all stuff they make kits that you can just buy one kit and get all those pieces. But it's a lot of fun. I'm in Allegheny County, which is 2B. And for the Game Commission, and we have some special regulations here. And in Allegheny County 2B, we're not allowed to use a rifle to hunt deer because, well, frankly, over every hill is another housing plan. So
Right.
We can use a shotgun to hunt deer, which was never something I enjoyed doing, or we can use a muzzleloader. So I've got my flintlock, and I haven't made it out hardly at all this year, but when I do go out, I take that flintlock, and I'm looking forward to harvesting a deer with the flintlock. I think that'll be very cool.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be a real cool thing to do.
I got my first bow and arrow ever for Christmas this year. So I know it's not gun related, but I'm very excited to try something different during buck season. Well, rifle or archery season in PA, but yeah.
Yeah, bow and arrows are fun. I don't have a whole lot of exposure, but the few times I did spend 3 days getting sunburnt going down the Allegheny River in a canoe shooting carp with a bow and arrow. That was something I did when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed that.
Well, the first time I ever shot a compound bow, well, actually, they had me do recurve and a compound bow, was last year at Great American Outdoor Show. I spent one of my days in the archery area because I was just very interested in it. And they have lanes set up so that you can test the equipment and work with the vendors. And, they were showing me the ins and outs and having a little fun with me while they were at it. And they put me on the compound bow, and I'm doing good, and I'm putting the arrow right where it needs to be, and I'm getting excited. And then all of a sudden I pull the string back and I let go too early, and it just raked right across my left arm, and I had a big, huge welt for the next month. And I said to my dad after that, that's something you do once and you never do it again. So then my dad brings me a bow and arrow for Christmas this year. He comes over with the family to visit for Christmas, and he brings his bow and arrow, and we start adjusting it, the draw weight and everything, and he shows me how everything goes together, how it all works. And I go to pull the string back, and he was having me use a release. It's like a trigger. It's this glove you put on your hand, and you literally pull a trigger. Well, if you tilt your arm just the wrong way, it'll release even if you don't put your finger on the trigger. Yeah, I did that. And once again, the string just raked right across my left arm. And he looked at me and he said, "We need to get you one of those arm protectors."
Yeah, they make those arm shields, yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
Well, with anything, perfect practice makes perfect, but practice will make you better with it, that's for sure.
Totally off topic, but yeah, that's my fun story for the day. So why don't we talk about the USCCA instructor certification workshops?
Okay, yeah, I've recently been went out to Wisconsin in December. I went out to Wisconsin to USCCA headquarters, rather, and there I have been certified to become a USCCA training counselor, like I am for the NRA, and what that means is I can now certify instructors. Traditionally, with the USCCA, to become a certified instructor, you had to go to one of their events that the head people at USCCA training would put on, and now they have recruited us and trained us, the training counselors, and we can go out and put on instructor training. And I've listed a few classes locally, and they've been booking up like crazy. People are really interested and want to become certified to teach this class that the USCCA offers. And so I'm doing the USCCA instructor training workshops. The procedure is quite different from the NRA. So there's, a lot of the NRA instructors I've trained have jumped on and want to become USCCA instructors too. And the procedure is different. There are some pre-qualifications that have to take place. It's really a fantastic program. And the USCCA concealed carry course is I would say, the best specific concealed carry class that takes place in a one-day format.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, I am a huge advocate for NRA training, and I think these are it's like talking about apples and oranges. The NRA personal protection courses are absolutely top notch, but for someone to go through those, they're going to need to invest in multiple days of training.
Mm-hmm.
You know, typically you're going to want to have them take basic pistol first, and then personal protection inside the home, and then personal protection outside the home. So there you're looking approximately 4 days of training.
And the costs compound on top of that, of course.
Sure. And, you know, you do get what you pay for. The NRA training is absolutely awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The USCCA training is fantastic because it touches on some of the things that are very important for people to understand in concealed carry. You know, we talk about firearm safety, absolutely. We talk about how to properly use a firearm, absolutely. But the majority of the class talks about legality, use of force, and conflict avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
And in the NRA courses, we bring in an expert, whether that be a lawyer or a police officer or what have you, to teach the lesson 3 use of force and the legality of use of force. And that's a tremendous value for the students because they can actually sit there one-on-one and face-to-face ask questions. And, you know, you always get someone, what if I'm wearing pink shoes and I'm sitting at a bus stop in Tallahassee?
He has a thing for pink, folks.
Yeah, I must. That's a second pink reference. So, you know, you can actually ask those questions one-on-one, which you do not get that type of interaction in the USCCA course. But we do talk about the concept of here's what happens generally in a situation like this. You know, typically this is what the prosecutor is going to look at if you're involved in a defensive shooting. So it really opens people's minds up to the fact that, oh, I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I'm carrying my firearm. I have my license or my permit, depending on where you live. Here in Pennsylvania, it's a license to carry a firearm. And so right away, we're law-abiding citizens. We think, okay, if I defend my family with this firearm, I'm going to be fine legally, and that's not often the case. And
Right.
You know, the USCCA course really shows a lot of how that legal process works. And again, it's kind of generalized because we're not there talking specifically, but it'll be, for instance, you know, typically after a shooting, here's what a defense attorney or a prosecuting attorney is going to look at. And they're going to apply the reasonable man standard. And what the reasonable man standard is would any reasonable person in the same situation have reacted in a similar way? And then they'll talk about, then after that, here's what typically happens after that. And so it really opens people's minds up to all those other concepts. And gunfighter skills and the actual physical usage of a firearm is absolutely paramount and important. But teaching conflict avoidance, I think, is equally as important and arguably more important because the thing this is one of my phrases I use. If I touch trigger, my life changes. And my wife and I have built a really good life, and I really don't want it to change. Now, that being said, if it's defend my wife, especially defend my son or defend my son's daddy, meaning myself, yeah, I'm going to do that. But God knows I'm going to try and do everything I can to avoid doing that. And so that's where conflict avoidance comes into play. You know, we really need to be situationally aware, keep our eyes open, our head on a swivel. Just, you know, those of you that ride motorcycle know you have to constantly be scanning for threats and dangers and potholes and jerks who aren't paying attention to you, you know. And we need to do that. We owe it to ourselves and our fellow citizens to be doing that if we're carrying a firearm. You know, the example I always give is if I'm walking down the hall at the mall and I'm looking at my cell phone texting, not paying attention, and another individual is coming to me, say they're 200 feet away, and they pull out a knife, and they're waving the knife up in the air just like in the horror movies, and I'm looking at my cell phone texting, and they come up and they get on me and they stick the knife in my shoulder, and I pull my firearm and I shoot the individual and defend myself. Would I have the right to defend myself? That's the question I ask, and I'll ask you. Do I have the right to defend myself?
Yes.
Absolutely. But you could see where a prosecutor that perhaps may not be very Second Amendment friendly could make a really strong argument that had I been paying attention, I might not had to use that firearm.
Right.
And that's one of the things we want people to think about.
I often talk on the show about how the firearm is one of many tools in your toolkit, and hopefully the last tool that you go after. There's another gentleman I've had on the show by the name of Sean Rafferty, and he has a program that he's put together called the Safety Blueprint, which is all about situational awareness and the kinds of things to look for when you're trying to employ situational awareness. And there's other programs and books out there. The NRA has the Refuse to be a Victim program, which is a fantastic program. But it's all about how to try to avoid situations either by not putting yourself in a compromised position in the first place, like parking in a dark parking lot. But it's also about being aware of what's going on around you as the world turns, so to say. And those are all tools in your toolkit as well. And you use all of these tools out of your toolbox to keep you and yours as safe as you can. And we can't avoid every situation, but we can certainly try.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes on to the responsibility aspect of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Is it responsible to put yourself in a situation where you might need to use that firearm? For instance, the for instance I give when I ask that question is, all right, those of you from Pittsburgh will understand this. You go to a Pens game and everybody knows of some weird dark alley behind a dumpster up in the Hill District that you can park your car and not pay.
Yeah.
Everyone knows where that spot is. So you bring your kid to the hockey game, and there you are at midnight walking up in the Hill District in some alley and to get to your car where you parked for free behind some dumpster, and you are confronted and you have to use your firearm to defend yourself and your family. Absolutely, it's your right to defend yourself, but why would you put yourself in that situation anyhow? It's responsible. Just pay the $12. If you can pay for Pens tickets, you can afford the $12 to park in the well-lit garage where there's security.
Or take the T, which is our version of the Metro or a subway.
Sure, absolutely. So it's why put yourself in that situation. And this is something we talk about in the Refuse to be a Victim program too. If you're in an elevator and someone gets in the elevator that makes you uncomfortable, get off. Get off the elevator. My son and I were in the grocery store. This was a couple months ago, and someone came in and they had their head down and he had his arms folded funny, and just something about him sent my spidey sense off, and my hair stood up on end. And I picked my boy up and left the cart there, and we left. We just walked out of the store. And he says, "Dad, are we gonna get our food?" I said, "Well, we'll go back later, buddy." Yeah. And was it the right thing to do? I'm sorry the stock boy had to put the food back on the shelf, and that's unfortunate. But if that individual made my hair stand up on end and I got the heebie-jeebies about it, then I trust that and I leave. Why leave myself and my son, especially in a situation where I might have to defend him with that firearm? Let's get out of there. In some cases with the, and I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on television. In some cases we don't necessarily have to retreat in Pennsylvania with the extension of the Castle Doctrine, and consult an attorney and to have them explain what I mean with that. But if we can retreat, let's retreat. Right. There is nothing wrong with leaving, getting out of there, taking some cover. The part of your plan should be, let me set this up with, when seconds count, police are minutes away. And that's not a dig at law enforcement. That's just embracing reality.
Right.
So with that said, let's see what we can do to give police those minutes they need so that they can do their job, because they all want to do their job. God knows, I can't imagine anyone would do that job if they didn't want to. So let's do what we can to help them. Let's have a plan in place that we can buy as much minutes as possible. And if those minutes don't exist and we have to use the firearm, then you need to give yourself permission to fight. Give yourself permission to defend yourself and your family. There is not one animal on the planet that does not defend itself or its offspring. So it's right to do that. But let's do what we can to not do that if we can, if that's at all possible.
I said in the last episode, I just totally lost my train of thought about that coffee. I was saying, with great power comes great responsibility, which is, the famous line that we all know from our comic books, but it's absolutely true. And the Pennsylvania does not have a training requirement to get our license to carry a firearm. There are other states out there that do not have a training requirement, and some states that do. And we all know that that initial training requirement, for the most part, does not qualify you as an expert in defensive handgunning or or self-defense. So whether your state has a training requirement or not for you to get your permit, if that state even requires a permit, when you pick up a firearm, you have the responsibility of knowing the safety rules and following them. When you put that firearm on your hip and start walking around in public, your responsibility has grown exponentially. And
and your liability,
and your liability
situation with something other than a firearm, it's going to be looked at differently from a legal standpoint than if you even had the firearm on you and you didn't use the firearm. So part of the lifestyle choice when using a firearm as a tool of self-defense, which I'm all for it, I'm absolutely all for it.
But you have to get the training from qualified instructors.
Yeah, get the training and become a student of the law, become a student of restraint, learn about animal behavior, predator behavior. I mean, you can learn a lot about predators just by watching Animal Planet and alligators.
I laugh, but that's true.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So definitely get a well-rounded, balanced diet. Using that term I used before when it comes to your training.
Folks, eat your breakfast.
Yeah, outside me. of the actual firearms, gunfighter skills, all these other things come into play. It's very important.
Mm-hmm. And being a student of the law is so very true as well, because every state has different rules and regulations. Pennsylvania has Castle Doctrine, Florida has Castle Doctrine, and while Pennsylvania tried to model off of Florida, there are still differences between the two. So if you live in Florida or if you live in PA, it may get applied differently in a court of law. There's different things like disparity of force that can come into play, and whether or not you do have a duty to retreat, whether or not you react differently if you're inside your home versus out on a public street. There's so many nuances to it. And, you make a decision in a few short seconds as to how to react to a situation, but a jury has days to listen to all the things that went into those few short seconds and consider how they may have responded to such a situation. So you have to be a student of the gun. There is a podcast called Student of the Gun. And you also have to be a student of the law. That's so very true. And courses from the NRA, from the USCCA, taking a coaching class with somebody qualified like Clint, going to the range and practicing, getting yourself a laser pistol or a laser setup and doing practice that way, doing dry firing, role playing, watching the news, and how might have I responded to that if that were me? All of those things come into play, and it's not about being paranoid. It is a way of life that you are choosing.
Yeah, this is going to be a T-shirt eventually. I've been asked, "Are you paranoid?" I said, "No, I'm prepare-anoid." Trying to prepare myself for anything I can possibly foresee, and of course that's impossible. But we have to try. If you remember after 9/11, whether you liked him or not, Rumsfeld certainly had a way of speaking, and one of the things he had said was it was a failure of imagination, and I try and keep that in my mind. I try to imagine every possible thing that can happen in any environment I find myself, and of course, just life being what it is, there's no way I'm going to think of everything. That's impossible. But you're darn right I'm going to try. And try and come up with some type of plan to deal with any of those scenarios that I can come up with, and even a bad plan is better than no plan at all. Yep. And so it's important to do that. One other resource for folks that is something I'm interested in and am a part of too is U.S. Law Shield. They do legal seminars, and they do them in the Pittsburgh area especially, but they're in other states as well. They offer a 3-hour seminar with lawyers and law enforcement officers there, and they talk about use of force and the legality of the area that you find yourself in. Obviously, the ones here in Pittsburgh would be in regards to the Commonwealth here, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But I totally recommend and tell people, go check out those seminars. They're fantastic seminars. And U.S. Law Shield is another organization that I think is a very high-quality thing that you might want to look into, as well as the United States Concealed Carry Association.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be meeting with the guys from the United States Carry Association again. I met with them last year at Great American, and you were gracious enough to get me a contact, so we'll be meeting with them again this year. And I have spoken with the folks over at the other organizations
you're gonna
as
meet
well.
with Steve, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're really great. You know, they offer legal training seminars. The USCCA has their firearm training classes that you can take, and they also offer some sort of concealed carry insurance. So if, heaven forbid, you do find yourself in a situation where you do have to use force, they will help you obtain legal representation if necessary, and really great programs.
There's specific wording to that, but as a member of USCCA, you become the beneficiary of a liability insurance policy. So what that means is they will help you lawyer up after the incident. And U.S. Law Shield does something similar. It's slightly different, but it's basically the same outcome. And there's a few other companies that do it. Actually, the NRA endorses another company, and do your homework. You know, find out what fit's going to be best for you. I actually carry a USCCA card and a U.S. Law Shield card in my pocket, and someone said, "Which card are you going to pull out if ever you need to use?" Both. And I said honestly, it's going to be the one that I don't drop because I'll be shaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're both very, very, very good organizations, and I will say with USCCA, everyone I have met there, and I've been involved with them for a couple years now, they're just good people, and just really genuine, swell folks. Not to sound corny, but Tim Schmidt is one of the nicest, swellest guys I've met. He's just really good people, and all the people there are fantastic. And with USCCA especially, part of your membership, you get their magazine, Concealed Carry Magazine. Mm-hmm. You get access to all kinds of information. The email blasts they sent out, the blogs, the podcasts, all the different things they have is just really top-notch information. And incidentally, the July issue of Concealed Carry, they did a page on me, a profile, which was kind of cool.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Yeah, shameless self. But just those benefits are definitely worth the price of admission, in my opinion. Really, really fantastic organization. I can't wait to hear what you have to say after you meet Steve. He's a real character. He's a really cool dude.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good show. There's lots of good stuff that's come out this year, and some really great people, and it's going to be good. It was great last year, and I'm sure it'll be good again this year. So,
yeah, I don't know what day I'm going to be down there, but I'm going to go down for one day and do my rounds and say hello to everybody. But yeah, it's an excellent show. When you go into the room where all of the turkey calls and the coyote are, you'll have a twitch when you leave that room. I went in there and it about drove me nuts.
Yeah.
Of turkey calls and stuff. It was something to see. I'm going to bring a recorder down and record it. I just think that's something that people need to experience.
Some of the booths for taxidermists are pretty impressive. I took some pictures last year that I put up on different social medias.
Alligators?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that was something else. I took a photo with that too.
They're really impressive. They're absolutely beautiful. Some of them you could just stand there and stare for a couple minutes because the detail is just uncanny.
Sure.
It's wonderful. Woohoo, fun. Yay. Is there anything else you would like listeners to know? Repeat your website URL and all that stuff again. And
triggerpressersunion.com. That's triggerpressersunion.com. Yes, I understand that's a long web address.
You've done that a few times.
And hindsight being what it is, perhaps I could have made that shorter somehow, but people remember it. That's the important thing. And
Mm-hmm.
you had also mentioned, the QR course that you had done this weekend. That's with Trident Home Safety. That's a new company
Mm-hmm.
of mine that I've joined up with Carl Thompson and Paul Huska, and that website is tridenthomesafety.com. Pretty easy to remember. And we've got some really interesting programs that we're going to be putting out, and look forward to making those available in the future.
Looking forward to taking more. As always, yeah, that class that I took over the weekend was really phenomenal. And I came home that evening and I told my husband the next time they do that class, I am paying and signing you up, and I don't care if you like it or not. You're going. Because it's a really great class, and even just as a parent, I feel more comfortable having had the class, and as per usual as a student I want more,
Well,
so looking
before
forward to
we wrap up,
more.
we've referenced that twice, and I hadn't explained really what that was. The QR course, and it's going to evolve a little bit. But we originally put the idea together to come up with a class that would be specific for instructors and RSOs, and it was ways to maximize your time from when you call 911 to when the ambulance arrives.
Hmm.
And as you had mentioned, it's not just a gunshot related accident. It could be heart issue, heat stroke, people being dehydrated, all those different things. And our safety specialist, Paul Huska, he's a professional firefighter and paramedic, and so he was going to teach the medical portion of it. And after we had set the date, he had since been certified by ASHI to do CPR and first aid and actually give people a certification. So we kind of we kind of changed our course. Our course was pretty down and dirty, and we added in the ASHI portion. So to give it a little more, I guess, legitimacy, because we're brand new, and this wasn't going to be certified training per se, because we're not the American Heart Association or anything like that. So adding the ASHI portion of it made it a little more it was beneficial to people to take it. So they got their CPR card and their first aid card. And so what we had done was we did the ASHI first aid, the ASHI CPR AED course, and then we did our Trident QR course, which I think we tried very hard to tie in all those medical emergencies that were in the first aid class and CPR class, and apply them to the context of a live firing range. So we're going to make some adjustments on it based upon Crystal, and I had everyone that was there fill out a reasonably detailed evaluation. So we're going to make a few adjustments on it. We're going to put another one out, and hopefully we'll be able to, put the show on the road, so to speak, and go to every sportsman's club, anywhere there's RSOs and instructors. I think it would be a beneficial training opportunity for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I told you at the end of that class that I wanted to have you and Paul come on sometime and talk about what you guys are doing with that company and with this class and other classes you want to put on in the future. And I still extend that invitation. I think that would be invaluable to talk about. And
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I've got the firearms background. We all kind of overlapped slightly. All the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the guys. Paul is an excellent firearms instructor. So is Carl, and Carl has an extensive military background, and he also has lots and lots of practical experience with client protection and executive protection and security. And then, of course, Paul is the professional paramedic, so he comes at it from more of a medical and fire prevention aspect. So we cover everything from one of the programs I'm putting together is people will take, say, for instance, NRA personal protection inside the home, and they'll do that at a sportsman's club or at a range, and then they have to try and apply that knowledge to their house. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I come out and we basically go through all of that information in your home using CERT pistols, and we actually go through slow speed home invasion drills, and we work out your plan and we work out your sight lines. So okay, if I engage a bad guy from here, if I miss, that bullet's going to go through the house and it's going to hit the neighbor's house. So maybe if I engage a couple feet to the right, this will work as a backstop. And we even have Jack Houston, who's an instructor I work with a lot with trigger pressers. He comes in and he'll do consultations on, okay, well, if we have over penetration issues here, if we take the drywall out of this wall and we put in this material, we can make it more ballistically safe so that we don't have over-penetration issues. So it's pretty comprehensive. And it covers everything from, again, stop, drop, and roll, fire safety, all the way up to security and client executive protection. So we're pretty excited about it.
I don't know how you get any sleep.
Well, all this stuff is what I do for a living. I've never had a day job, or I'm not a 9-to-5 guy. So if you're not a 9-to-5 guy, that means you're a 12-to-12 guy.
True story. All right, folks. So again, that's triggerpressersunion.com. And as always, the links will be in the show notes. And we will see you next time.
All right. Thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it.
Anytime.